They've now donated to the Trump inauguration. Are you still going to break up big tech?
So you know who else was at the inauguration?
Quick, deflect, 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 deflect. You know who else was there? Your mom. And she was too. LOL. Gotta.
Was my mom and a lot of people who just supported the president.
I wanted to watch the JD Vance interview with you guys. I want to make sure we have time for it, so we will start that now.
Pete Hegseth, it was a tie. Bipartisan opposition, smallest margin since the job was created. You had to break that tie. If the nominee can't unite your party, how's he going to lead 3 million people?
Well, look, I think Pete is a disruptor, and a lot of people don't like that disruption. But, Margaret, that disruption is incredibly necessary. If you think about all of those bipartisan massive votes, we have to ask ourselves, what did they get us? They got us a country where we fought many wars over the last 40 years but haven't won a war about as long as I've been alive. They've got us a military with a major recruitment crisis, a procurement crisis that's totally dysfunctional, where we buy airplanes for billions and billions of dollars, terrible cost overruns, the delivery dates are always delayed. So we need a big change. Now, admittedly, there are people who don't like that big change, but it is necessary, and it's explicitly what Donald J. Trump ran on, and I think part of the reason why the American people elected him their 47th president.
So the main objective is changing all of that, that it's going to be Pete Hegseth alone?
I'd say the main problem is
I'm so sorry, but like, I'm supposed to take the military's recruitment crisis seriously, given the funding we give to Israel? Do you want me to laugh? Am I supposed to laugh right now? We haven't won a war since he's been alive. Maybe it's because we keep picking stupid fucking wars.
The main thing that we want Pete Hegseth to do is to fix the problems at the Department of Defense. And unfortunately, there are many. We've gotten into way too many wars that we don't have a plan for winning. We've gotten into way too many misadventures that we shouldn't have got into in the very first place. And our procurement process, Margaret, is incredibly broken. We're in an era.
Decisions.
Well, of course, they're policy decisions, but they're also logistical and implementation decisions. If you look at where we are with the rise of artificial intelligence, with the rise of drone technology and drone warfare, we have to really, top to bottom, change the way that we fund the procurement of weapons, the way that we arm our troops. This is a major period of disruption, and we think Pete Hegseth is the guy to lead the job. Now, there's another element to this, Margaret, too, which is we believe that military morale, at least until the election of President Trump, was historically low. You had the Army missing recruitment goals by tens of thousands of soldiers, and already...
No, we don't have enough people to feed our war machine. Oh, that's so sad. Oh, man. So what happened to, like, groceries?
Recruitment is starting to pick up because Pete Hegseth is fundamentally a warfighter's leader at the Department of Defense. He's a
like,
guy...
dog, nobody wants to go die in World War III because America won't stop fucking funding Israel.
Who sees not through the perspective of the generals or the bureaucrats, he looks at things through the perspective of the men and women that we send off to fight in our wars.
Both the Wall Street Journal and the National Review, conservative publications, as you know, have been critical of Tulsi Gabbard. The Review called her an atrocious nominee who deserves to be defeated. They compared her defense of Edward Snowden, the fugitive who stole U.S. secrets, to an attorney general who thinks the mob gets a bad rap. Her refusal...
Notice the term traitor here. He was a traitor to U.S. government interests, not the American people, but that's not the important part.
To accept U.S. intelligence findings that Assad gassed his own people, they said was like a nominee for OMB director not being able to count. Does any of this give you pause putting her in charge of the U.S. intelligence community? Yes or no?
No, Margaret, look, these are publications that attacked Donald J. Trump obsessively, but those publications don't determine who the president is, the American people do.
Him.
And Donald J. Trump is the person who determines who his cabinet is, not these publications that I think, frankly, have lost relevance.
The Senate
Here's
will
Tulsi
ultimately
Gabbard.
decide.
Well, the Senate will provide advice and consent, as is its constitutional obligation, but I feel confident that Tulsi Gabbard will ultimately get through. Two things that are important to know about Tulsi. First of all, she is a career military servant who's had a classification at the highest levels for nearly 2 decades. She has impeccable character, impeccable record of service, and she also is a person who I think is going to bring some trust back to the intelligence services. The bureaucrats at our intelligence services have got
Impeccable character, most notably known for jumping ship from the Democratic Party when she realized it wouldn't work for her, jumping to the Trump Party because she realized it was easy as fuck, and also the other major qualifier, or the other major thing to know with Tulsi is being basically a Russian asset. Yes, impeccable character.
Gotten completely out of control. They've been part of the weaponization of our political system, the weaponization of our justice system. We need to have good intelligence services who keep us safe, but part of that is restoring trust in those services, and we think Tulsi is the right person to do it. That's
She
why
doesn't
the
trust
president,
those intelligence services.
she recognizes that the bureaucrats have gotten out of control, and we need somebody there who's going to rein them in and return those services to their core mission of identifying information that's going to keep us safe.
You campaigned on lowering prices for consumers. We've seen all of these executive orders. Which one lowers prices?
We have done a lot, and there have been a number of executive orders that have caused already jobs to start coming back into our country, which is a core part of lowering prices. More capital investment, more job creation in our economy
So what's up with insulin?
is one of the things that's going to drive down prices for all consumers, but also raise wages so that people can afford to buy the things that they need. If you look at our
grocery prices
slate
aren't gonna come
of
down.
executive orders, no, Margaret, prices
Wait, she's eating?
are going to come down, but it's going to take a little bit of time, right? The president has been president for all of 5 days. I think that in those 5 days, he's accomplished more than Joe Biden did in 4 years. It's been an incredible breakneck pace of activity. We're going to work with Congress. We're, of course, going to have more executive orders, and we're going to try the way that you lower prices is that you encourage more capital investment into our country. And you ask specifically, what executive order is going to help lower prices? All of the stuff that we've done on energy, to explore more energy reserves, to develop more energy resources in the United States of America. One of the main drivers of increased prices under the Biden administration is that we had a massive increase in the energy prices. Donald Trump has already taken multiple executive actions that are going to lower energy prices, and I do believe that means consumers are going to see lower prices at the pump and at the grocery store, but it's going to take a little bit of time. Rome wasn't built in a day.
We're going to see lower energy prices at the grocery store?
And while we've done a whole lot, we can't undo all of the damage of Joe Biden's presidency in 4 days.
Well, there are a lot of things that contributed to higher energy prices, and there was record oil and gas production.
Yes, Joe Biden did many terrible things to lead to an increase in...
She's eating. This is a common talking point that Republicans fucking love, most notably Trumpers, where they'll be like, well, Trump is going to drill, baby, drill. And it's like, wait, but there was record oil pumping under Biden. Yeah, well, when he did it, it was stupid and dumb. And when Trump does it, it's good.
Prices, I agree, Margaret.
No, but all the things you experience at the grocery store are what people touch and feel. That's what you were talking about, bacon on the campaign trail.
Of course, of course.
Those things, when do consumers actually get to touch and feel a difference in their lives?
Well, Margaret, how does bacon get to the grocery store? It comes on trucks that are fueled by diesel fuel. If the diesel's way too expensive, the bacon's going to become more expensive. How do we grow the bacon? Our farmers need energy to produce.
That's fucking stupid. Then everything in the grocery store would objectively be more expensive. But that's not what happens. Also, grow the bacon. What happens is certain products consistently get more expensive, like eggs, for example, because of things like what is it, H5N1 or is it H1N5? Bird flu. And because didn't Kroger literally admit under like the threat of perjury, essentially, that they purposefully gouged prices? Like, what are we talking about here? Because the gas was too expensive? Are you kidding me? Gas hasn't even been that expensive recently. It's been about as expensive as it's been like the last, I don't know, how many months?
Reduce it. So if we lower energy prices, we are going to see lower prices for consumers, and that is what we're trying to fight for.
Well, the flurry of executive orders, most of them weren't about the economy. Many of them
were, though, Margaret.
And yes, Chatter, you're right. Prices are not going to come down. It's about raising wages. That's the game thing he talks about, are just increasing profits. Lower costs don't get passed on to consumers. Increased prices do. Yes.
I think we've taken
promise
over
of tariffs by February 1st.
We've taken over 200 executive actions, some executive orders, other executive actions. Again, this is in less than a week, and a lot of them were focused on the economy, bringing investment into our country and lowering energy prices. We've also focused on safety, restoring public safety, ending weaponization of the Department of Justice. We've done a lot. And I think the president is to be commended for actually coming in and doing something with
the American people in general are very terrified of the Department of Justice. Every day that goes by, I'm always like, I really hope the Department of Justice doesn't come after me. I feel like this is not an out of touch opinion, and this is something most Americans agree with.
This incredible mandate the American people gave him. He's not sitting in the Oval Office doing nothing. He's doing the American people's business, and I think they're going to see a lot of good effects from it.
Well, a lot of these announcements have yet to take effect.
Sure.
The president did say he wants to do something with an executive order in relation to federal emergency response. He said he may reform or eliminate FEMA. Instead of sending emergency responders, he may start to send a percentage of money to states to take care of themselves. But, you know, FEMA has specialized expertise that some of these states just don't have
Margaret,
in their arsenal. And
I wish
how
that they...
will states who are lower income states, the Mississippis, the Kentuckys, the Alabamas, be able to do this for themselves without federal help?
Well, the president, to be clear, is not saying we're going to leave anybody behind. He's saying that in the way that we administer these resources, some of which is coming from the federal level, some of which is coming from the state level, we've got to get the bureaucrats out of the way and get the aid to the people who need it most.
But these
Let's
are the
be
first
honest,
responders.
Margaret, you talk about the expertise from FEMA. FEMA in North Carolina, in California, in Florida with some of the hurricanes has often been a disaster. And it's not because we don't have good people at FEMA. It's because bureaucrats...
Dude, I know every fucking Republican in office in any of these southern states is freaking the fuck out right now. Me when I fucking lie. Consistently, red states thank the fuck out of FEMA.
Prevents the rapid deployment of resources to the people who need it most.
But the states are now going to have to do this themselves?
The president is trying to encourage us to reform the way that we deliver emergency response in a way that gets resources to people who need it.
So don't take him literally, is what you're saying.
We should take the president at his word.
Oh my.
FEMA needs desperate reform because it does. Margaret, when I went to North Carolina as VP-elect, but before we were sworn in, people would talk about how FEMA would get resources, food, medicine, water to a warehouse, but then would have no plan to get it from the warehouse to the people in the mountains who were literally starving and thirsting to death. We can do so much better. And
they're thirsting to death in the mountains. In the North Carolina mountains, they're thirsting. Are they in the room with us right now? Are they in the room with us? The Onion was watching your stream. Pentagon warns China developing love, the greatest weapon of all. Oh God, dude, fuck. A transcendent source of strength that ultimately triumphs over any defense an enemy might try to erect against it. Weapons experts confirm that if it were unleashed, the all-consuming feeling could strike the hearts of billions throughout Asia and the Pacific, even reaching the west coast of the United States. Our assessments indicate love is stronger than any technology possessed by the U.S. military. If China it succeeds, it will have the power to remake the global order by spreading universal love and understanding to every corner of the world. In 2019, the UN issued sanctions after it found evidence of China's intent to open itself to love's embrace. But inspectors reportedly underestimated just how quickly the smallest seed of tenderness could flourish. So what should the Pentagon do now? With new theories suggesting it has the potential to be far, far stronger than love, America's best strategy may be developing the technology to harness the power of mild annoyance. All right, back to the video.
Under Donald Trump's leadership, we will.
But they work with the state and local officials.
They often
So
don't work
now
well
it's
enough. And again, that's
going to
not
be on
because
the state
of
and local officials?
No, the FEMA management officials don't work well enough with state and local officials to get resources to the people who need it. We should expect, and this is, I think, one of the fundamental premises of President Trump's leadership, the American people should expect more of their government. When there's a terrible disaster, they should expect food, medicine.
They should expect more, and that's why we're cutting these programs. Good.
Water to get to the people who need it. When there's a terrible fire in California, the fire hydrants ought to actually turn on. I am sick of the American people having such low expectations for their government. They should demand more of us because this is the greatest country in the world, and that's what Donald Trump's leadership promises to bring back.
So still count on the federal government, but watch that space. Let me ask you about another area that you campaigned on quite a lot, and there was a flurry of activity on, and that has to do with immigration.
Sure.
The U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops this week condemned some of the executive orders signed by President Trump.
Also, by the way, that's not how the water thing works. Unlike higher altitudes, you're going to need to be able to pump the water up, which you need.
Their government sounds like Kami talking to me.
And you need power in order to pump water up. Unfortunately, because the fires would be exacerbated by having active power lines, you can't just leave the power lines on. Also, yeah, fire hydrants are not made for wildfires. Fire hydrants were made predominantly for like random house fires that might go off, or apartment complexes that might light on fire, or just random things on like street levels. Like one individual instance, not forest fires, not wildfires, where there's a lot of tinder, there's a lot of dry brush that's going to expand the fire further and further and further. Please stop spreading misinformation, Denim. They were invented for dogs to pee on them. I'm so stupid. Oh, I'm so dumb. Oh, I'm such a stupid idiot. Ugh. Sorry for posting cringe. I love the People's Republic of China. No. No.
Specifically those allowing immigration and customs enforcement to enter churches and to enter schools. Do you personally support the idea of conducting a raid or enforcement action in a church service, at a school?
Well, let me address this. Of course, if you have a person who is convicted of a violent crime, whether they're an illegal immigrant or a non-illegal immigrant, you have to go and get that person to protect the public safety. That's not unique to immigration. But let me just address this particular issue, Margaret, because as a practicing Catholic, I was actually heartbroken by that statement. And I think that the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops needs to actually look in the mirror a little bit and recognize that when they receive over $100 million to help resettle illegal immigrants, are they worried about humanitarian concerns, or are they actually worried about their bottom line?
How dare these churches take in anyone? How could these Christians, if Christians are right, by the way? And it's the meme of the guy on fire.
We're going to enforce immigration law. We're going to protect the American people.
Yeah.
Donald Trump promised to do that. And I believe the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops, if they're worried about the humanitarian costs of immigration enforcement, let them talk about the children who have been sex trafficked because of the wide open border of Joe Biden.
You personally
let them talk
support them
about
going into
people like
schools
Laken
and
Riley
churches.
who were brutally murdered. I support us doing law enforcement against violent criminals.
Dude, she's eating him. She is eating. So are you cool with them like going into churches to take these people? Yeah, well, maybe they should stop touching little boys. So you're cool with it. Okay, got it. Next question.
Whether they're illegal immigrants or anybody else, in a way that keeps us safe. Let me ask this question,
But
Margaret. Let's separate the immigration issue. If you had a violent murderer in a school, of course I want law enforcement to go and
course.
get that person out.
Of
So what's
course.
the point of the question?
You changed the regulation this week. That's the point of the question.
Exactly.
Giving the authority
Yes.
to go into churches and go into schools.
We empowered law enforcement to enforce
But
the
that
law
also
everywhere
has a
to protect
knock-on
Americans.
effect, a chilling effect, arguably, to people to not send their kids to school.
I desperately hope it has a chilling
In the
effect on
churches,
illegal
you think
immigrants
the
coming
U.S.
into our
Conference
country.
of Catholic Bishops are actively hiding criminals from
I think the U.S.
law
Conference
enforcement?
of Catholic Bishops has frankly not been a good partner in common sense immigration enforcement that the American people voted for. And I hope, again,
How dare this church take in the poor and needy? Jesus didn't want this. Jesus says, if there are any illegal immigrants in your country, you can kill them. That's what Jesus says. He told me. Supply side Jesus told me.
again, as a devout Catholic, that they'll do better.
There are 5 legal challenges already to one of the other immigration actions, the order on birthright citizenship. A federal judge appointed by Ronald Reagan, I think you'd agree, has some conservative credentials,
Sure.
paused the order to end birthright citizenship, calling it blatantly unconstitutional. How do you reconcile this challenge to the 14th Amendment to the Constitution?
So I obviously disagree with that judge, and these things, some of them will be litigated. That's the nature of our constitutional system. But here's the basic idea of President Trump's view on this. If you are a lawful permanent resident or a legal immigrant who plans to stay, your children, of course, should become American citizens. But let's say you're the child of an ambassador. You don't become...
But that's not part of it.
Well, that
There's
is
already a
that is
carve-out
that is
having
an
to do with
important
kids of
principle.
diplomats.
But we're saying that carve-out should apply to anybody who doesn't plan to stay here. If you come here on vacation and you have a baby in an American hospital, that baby doesn't become an American citizen. If you're an illegal alien and you come here temporarily, hopefully, your child does not become an American citizen by virtue of just having been born on American soil. It's a very basic principle in American immigration law that if you want to become an American citizen and you've done it the right way, and the American people and their collective wisdom have welcomed you into our national community, then you become a citizen. But temporary residents, people who come in here, whether legally or illegally, and don't plan to stay, their children should become American citizens. I don't know any country that does that or why we would be different.
Well, this is a country founded by immigrants.
Well, this is a country
This is a
founded
unique
by...
country.
This is a very unique country, and it was founded by...
Why would we ever allow immigrants to get citizenship through their children? Because it's a country founded by immigrants? Who are you hired by? The woke media?
By some immigrants and some settlers, but just because we were founded by immigrants doesn't mean that 240 years later that we have to have the dumbest immigration policy in the world. No country says that temporary visitors, their children, will be given complete access to the benefits and blessings of American citizenship. America should actually look out for the interests of our citizens first, and that means, again, if you're here permanently and lawfully, your kid becomes an American citizen. If you're not...
He also doesn't explain why that's a bad thing. Also, it's
here
not true, Canada?
permanently, if you're not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States and don't plan to be, why would we make those people's children American citizens permanently?
I want to ask you about refugee admissions, which were just suspended by the president. That has nothing to do with the U.S. border. Refugee screening takes 18 to 24 months to go through. They are heavily vetted. Left literally at the airport this week were thousands of Afghans, some of whom had worked with the United States government and were promised to come here. When you talked to us in August, you said, I don't think we should abandon anybody who's been properly vetted and helped us. Do you stand by that?
Well, Margaret, I don't agree that all these immigrants or all these refugees have been properly vetted. In fact, we know that there are cases of people who allegedly were properly vetted.
How ghoulish, dude. Countries and territories with birthright citizenship You can tell this is woke media. You can immediately tell this is woke media because it says something that I don't agree with. What do you mean? All of these countries have birthright citizenship. That's not right. That can't be correct. 35 countries have unrestricted and 40 have restricted birthright. That's not right. No, that's fake. Fake news, guys. Fake news.
And then we're literally planning terrorist attacks on our country. That happened during the campaign, if you may remember. So clearly not all of these foreign nationals
but there are
have been properly
30,000
vetted.
people in the pipeline, Afghan refugees.
But my primary
Do you stand by
concern
it?
as the vice president, Margaret, is to look after the American people. And now that
So
we
no.
know that we have vetting problems with a lot
So
of these
no.
refugee programs, we absolutely cannot unleash thousands
Dude, why does he do these interviews? Why?
of unvetted people into our country.
These
It's
people are
not
vetted.
good.
These people are vetted.
Just like the guy who planned a terrorist attack in Oklahoma a few months ago, he was allegedly properly vetted, and many people in the media and the Democratic Party said that he was properly vetted. Clearly, he wasn't. I don't want my children to share a neighborhood with people who are not properly vetted, and because I don't want it for my kids, I'm not going to force any other American citizens' kids to do that either.
No, and that was a very particular case. It wasn't clear if he was radicalized when he got here or while he was living
Sorry,
here. That was
sorry.
a
My
very
kids,
I was laughing at the Noah Megalong. I'm sorry.
I'm not going to force any other American citizens' kids to do that either.
no, and that was a very particular case. It wasn't clear if he was radicalized when he got here or while he was living here.
I don't really
But
care, Margaret. I don't want that person in my country, and I think most Americans agree with me.
2 weeks ago, you were on Fox News and you said if you protested peacefully on January 6th and had Merrick Garland's Department of Justice treat you like a gang member, you should be pardoned. If you committed violence on that day, obviously you shouldn't be pardoned. Did you counsel the president against these blanket pardons for 1,500 people,
Well, Margaret, I noticed
including those who committed violence?
Margaret, I noticed that you cut off the thing that I said immediately after that. The full quote is that, of course, there are gray areas. And here's the nature of the gray area. Merrick Garland's Department of Justice denied constitutional protections in the prosecutions. There were double standards in how sentences were applied to the J6 protesters versus other groups. What the president said
So the solution is just to give them blanket pardons?
consistently on the campaign.
Honestly, if that's what we're doing, like no more double standards, can we give blanket pardons to the countless Black Americans that have been sitting in prison because of weed charges? Because of nonviolent marijuana offenses? I'm down for that. Okay.
Is that he was going to
basis.
look at a case-by-case basis,
This is blanket.
and that's exactly what we did. We looked at 1,600 cases, and the thing that came out of it, Margaret, is that there was a massive denial of due process of liberty, and a lot of people were denied their constitutional rights. The president believes that. I believe that, and I think he made the right decision.
Daniel Rodriguez used an electroshock weapon against a policeman who was dragged out of the defensive line by plunging it into the officer's neck. He was imprisoned, sentenced to 12 years, 7 months. He got a pardon. Ronald Maccabee hit a cop while wearing reinforced brass knuckle gloves, and he held one down on the ground as other rioters assailed the officer for over 20 seconds, causing a concussion. If you stand with
Fucking face looks
assailed the
photoshopped.
officer. Officer for over 20 seconds, causing a concussion. If you stand with law enforcement, how can you call these people unjustly imprisoned?
Margaret, you're separating, there's an important issue here. There's what the people actually did on January the 6th, and we're not saying that everybody did everything perfectly. And then what did Merrick Garland's Department of Justice do in unjustly prosecuting well over 1,000 Americans in a way that was politically
Is
motivated?
violence like that against a police officer ever justified?
Violence against a police officer is not justified, but that doesn't mean that you should have Merrick Garland's
Also total horseshit, because there are lots of instances where violence against a police officer is justified. For example, one of the countless 40% of cops that beat their wives. That would be an instance where I think, yeah, actually, self-defense would be very justified there. Nice try, though.
weaponized Department of Justice expose you to incredibly unfair process, to denial of constitutional rights, and frankly, to a double standard that was not applied to many people, including, of course, the Black Lives Matter rioters who killed over 24 people and never had the weight of a weaponized Department of Justice come against them. The pardon power is not just for people who are angels or people who are perfect. And of course, we love
I can't believe he really called the January 6ers. They were no angels.
law enforcement and want people to be peaceful with everybody, but especially with our good cops. That's a separate issue from what Merrick Garland's Department of Justice did. We rectified
Good cop.
a wrong,
Nice oxymoron.
and I stand by it.
I'm being told we're out of time, but I want to quickly
Sure.
ask you, the
Please.
richest men in the world were at that Capitol on Inauguration Day, heads of Amazon, Google, Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook. In August, you told us Google and Facebook are too big. We ought to take the Teddy Roosevelt approach, break them up. Don't let them control what people are allowed to say. They've now donated to the Trump inauguration. Are you still going to break up big tech?
So you knew who else was at the inauguration?
Quick, deflect, 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 deflect. You know who else was there? Your mom. And she was gay too. LOL. Gotta.
Inauguration was my mom and a lot of people who just supported the president.
Apollo and the gift of prophecy. No. Bro, hit the muscle, man. Oh my God. Oh God, dude. Jesus Christ, man. It really be your own mom.
And fought every single day to get his election. And
They
to make
gave $1 million
and to make it
each
possible.
to the inauguration.
Well, there were a lot of people who didn't give $1 million to the inauguration.
pretty good seating.
Who were on that stage, Margaret. They didn't have as good a seating as my mom and a lot of other people who were there to support us.
Not her laughing at him, dude. Oh my God, he's gonna cry. I can hear her chuckling.
But look, we believe fundamentally that big tech does have too much power, and there are two ways they can go about this. They can either respect Americans' constitutional rights, they can stop engaging in censorship, and if they don't, you can be absolutely sure that Donald Trump's leadership is not going to look too kindly on them.
So they're still on notice.
They're very much on notice.
Dude, she kind of like cooked him. She kind of like, she ate him up for breakfast, dude. I'm going to be honest. I totally crushed that interview. Let's see what Fox News had to say about this interview. I'm sure it was very good coverage. Let's see. Now let's pull up their videos. JD Vance gives masterclass interview fiercely defending immigration policies.
Your Vice President, JD Vance, taking CBS to task after being questioned on the White House overhauling immigration policy. Watch this.
Well, this is a country founded by immigrants.
Well, this is a country founded by... This is a very unique country, and it was founded by some immigrants and some settlers. But just because we were founded by immigrants doesn't mean that 240 years later that we have to have the dumbest immigration policy in the world. America should actually look out for the interests of our citizens first.
Fox News contributor Joe Concha joins me now. Joe, you're...
Except you don't need to shut out immigrants to care about your people.
Your reaction?
Well, once again, Todd, JD Vance shows why Donald Trump chose him to be his VP. Every interview he does is a master class where he is the smartest, most common sense person in the room. And again,
Oh my copium. Oh my God, dude. What the hell? Seek help, bro.
In this case, common sense won the argument against
Glazin.
Margaret Brennan, who is yet another
Dude, he's grapefruit technique in it.
Democratic activist posing as a journalist over at CBS News. We all remember the way she conducted herself during the vice presidential debate, where she tried to fact check JD Vance, and Vance fact checked her fact check, and then she cut his mic off because she couldn't take the fact check. Look, the bottom line is, to JD Vance's point, we can't just absorb 12, 15, 20 million people into this country who enter illegally, completely unvetted, without there being consequences. We're talking about consequences from a national security standpoint, safety perspective. We're talking about consequences from a quality of life and economic perspective. We're seeing in places like New York.
Economic perspective, really? Even though farmers have consistently talked about how they're going to be totally boned once all the labor dries up? Okay. Common sense. Illegal criminals, except that they commit significantly less crimes than the average documented or even U.S. citizen. Okay, sure.
New York, social services like education, sanitation, police, they're all being cut because we're trying to subsidize all these people and paying for them to be here in perpetuity. And polling shows, Todd, that a vast...
Sorry, sanitation is being cut because of immigrants. Is an incredible one.
Majority of Americans
subsidized, excuse me,
the fact that mass deportation will be part of the Trump presidency. They obviously also support border wall, remain in Mexico, all these things to secure our border. So yeah, everybody loves immigration in terms of bringing people into this country legally. It makes this country great, but we can't continue to have what we had under the Biden administration. And once again,
Raiders from the Majority Report. Hi. Thank you guys so much for reading. We're watching The Delusion on Fox and Friends as they glaze one of the worst interview performances I've ever seen from JD Vance. But they're like, actually, he epically owned these people. He owned them so hard. It's a shock that anyone's even still standing. Yeah. This man is willing to do these tricks in public. I can't imagine how dirty they must get in private. No. Oh.
Again, JD Vance showed why, once again, he's the smartest guy in the room.
The couch fucker, really? The alleged couch fucker is the smartest guy in the room? Once your fucking couches, dude, there's clearly something wrong.
During these interviews.
But my objection to that kind of a question, when you have somebody like a JD Vance, Yale Law graduate, he can go back and forth on the law. So take that opportunity to ask an intelligent question on birthright citizenship, on the 14th Amendment, and go through the process that way. Don't fall back on the old mainstream media crutch of Republicans and Donald Trump.
What do you mean mainstream media crutch? You are the mainstream media. Fox News gets the most views on cable television, and it's not even close. You are the mainstream. I feel like I'm watching that fucking Nazi card skit again. You are the mainstream.
Like immigrants.
You literally won the election. What do you mean?
Because that is incorrect. To JD Vance's point and to your point, Joe, you just articulated what the White House is trying to do, and it is not an anti-immigrant policy. It is a policy to try to enforce
saying you want to deport all the illegal immigrants is not an anti-immigrant policy. Okay. Saying consistently, time and time again, your base admitting that they don't want H-1B visa workers here in the U.S., that's not anti-immigration. Being pro-mass deportation is somehow also not anti-immigration. Okay, good.
The rules and sovereignty of our nation, and that's it. For her to fall back on that trope once again, after it has been disavowed for years, is sad. I want to get your thoughts on this final topic, Politico. The reporters are commenting on the stark contrast between the Biden and Trump White Houses after just 1 week. writing, quote, as fast as the movers changed out the White House furniture, the country went from an invisible president unable to command the spotlight to an omnipresent one who wants the public's attention at all times. One strategist quoted in the article saying that the Trump administration is using this contrast with Biden to their advantage. It's hard not to, Joe.
I mean, Todd, what we've seen over the past, again, it's not even been a week.
Todd and Joe. Of course these guys would have these names. No offense to any Todds and Joes, but like, man, you couldn't, like, if I was playing a game and it was like, here are the base selections, what is it called? Like the character creation, here's the templates, the base template. That is what I expect would look like Todd and what would look like Joe.
As we sit here since Donald Trump took office, and it feels like he's been back for 2 years. And that's because he's taken more questions from the press in just 1 week, probably more than Joe Biden and Kamala Harris took over the span of 4 years. He is everywhere in terms of Western North Carolina, where those people surely were forgotten under the Biden administration. He went then to California and saw the devastating fires there. He has been omnipresent because there are so many problems that he feels his administration, his team needs to fix and fix right away because most are national emergencies. So, yeah, it is very refreshing to see a leader that is acting like a leader, not running off on vacation for 40% of his presidency like Joe Biden did, or running from the press like
40% of his presidency last time playing golf? Isn't he playing? He's probably golfing right now. What do you mean? Which, like, here's the thing. I'm not even shitting on it because, like, honestly, if I was president, I would also, golfing's dumb. I wouldn't golf. But I would also spend 60% of my time slacking off. Are you kidding me? But, like, you can't call him hardworking. Hello? Would you bowl? I would bollatro, let's be real, okay? I would be bollatroing and losing my Marvel Rebels games.
Joe Biden did. Look, it's a new sheriff in town, and Donald Trump, according to the polls, has high approval right now from Americans, the highest he's ever had, and it's only going to get better as he continues to address these problems in a forceful way like he has, Todd.
Joe Concha.
Famously, presidential approval always goes up throughout the presidency, clueless.